They really will. Now, because what people don't realize is, that's the power of 80-20. It's about putting your effort where it belongs, but people kind of don't really get how disparate these numbers are. Well, if the numbers are 80 and 20, I can show you the math. It's trivial. But what you'll find is a high value 20% activity, meaning one of the small number of things you do which has a great effect, compared to a low value 80% activity, which is one of the many effects, many causes that have a low effect. The high value activity is 16. If your numbers are 80-20, the high value activity gives you a 16 times increase in effect. 16 times. That is the power of 80-20. Now, to some people, that's just an academic exercise. Oh, that's really interesting. What do we do with it? But it's not just about focusing on what works. There's a good reason for doing it too, if you really get your head around it. Because what people will do is they will look at these things. So these areas are really high performing, and these ones are low. Let's work on these low performing areas and see if we can bring them up to speed. Not realizing that for every 1% increase you can make in a high value activity, is 16 times as powerful as a 1% increase in a low value activity. Probably the same amount of work. I mean, there'll be some, there'll be some exceptions, but for the most part, it is 16 times harder to get an improvement, like for like, in a low value activity than a high value one. So it makes no sense really to focus at all ever on your low value activities. If they need to be done, but they're not that valuable, but they need to be done, then pay someone else to do it. And by need to be done, I'm talking about there's things like your VAT return needs to be, taxes need to be done. They're not particularly high value activities. You should be delegating those. As business owners, we should be focused on the things that bring us money and the things that bring us a lot of money. Now, for us, for instance, what do we focus our time on when we're in the mood for it? Say we're recruiting for a lead. We focus most of our time and energy on getting new clients because that's a high value activity for us. Yeah. That's why we took Holly on to do stuff that's not such high value. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but of course, most business owners will try to save money by doing all this stuff themselves, not realizing that for every hour they doing shitty graphic design, they'd be better off sitting thinking, okay, I could speak to 3 clients in that hour and maybe move a sale forward, and that sale could be worth tens of thousands of pounds. Yeah, it's a false economy. They don't realize the 16 times effect. And here's what it actually means. I mean, just talking about numbers, they don't really mean a lot to us. They're just numbers. Unless you're mathematically inclined, numbers don't mean much. Yeah. This is why we have graphical representations, because that gives us visual representation. But think about this. If you wanted to make, if you were to say to someone, I mean, I'll give you an actual example in a minute of what happened. But if you were to say to most people, look, I want you to take a pay cut of 20%. But here's the thing, you only have to work for 20% of the time. That means you gain 80% of your salary, but you only work on a Monday. Would you do that? You'd be a fucking idiot not to. Gives you 4 days off for the rest of the week. And what you do in that time is entirely up to you. You could just take the time off, or you could spend those 4 days developing skills and other parts of your life to make more high value activities. Yeah, it doesn't make that's a consequence of the numbers. And many years ago, I was in Ireland, so it's no more than 14 years ago, but it's between 10 and 14 years ago. One of my clients, his son, was selling model cars off the website. And for some reason, 80-20, most of his sales came from fucking Singapore. Now, you'd never guess that, but for some obscure reason, there's a bunch of fucking Singaporeans buying these. They're expensive cars. It's £200 to £300 a time. Model cast iron cars. Buying these little cars for 300 quid from a bloke in Nottingham. Bizarre. But that's what was happening. But he also had a shop in Nottingham. And he spent all week in the shop, Monday to Saturday inclusive. And he had this emotional tug. I can't just not open the shop. And they had some contractual agreement where he would keep the shop open, but that's easy. Just close the shop and store your stock somewhere else. You know, you don't have to have a shop. And I said to him, look, this makes no sense, because he had his numbers. And I said, look, your numbers are clearly, you can't argue with these. You gave them to me. These numbers are telling me you're making 90% of your sales and 10% of your activity online. You're making 10% of your sales from your shop. And that's where you spend most of your time, sitting around waiting for people to come and buy from you, or chatting to them when they drop in and maybe drop 10 quid on a magazine, you know, a specialist magazine. I said, shut your shop, lose 10% of your income, shut your shop and focus exclusively on selling these cars, more of them. You've got to sell maybe one more a week and you're done.
Yeah.
And he says, I can't believe it. I said, this can't be right. I said, well, show me where it's wrong. Show me where what I'm saying is wrong, and I'll agree with you, you know, but show me where I'm wrong. It was an emotional thing. Now, the thing is, 80-20 is an emotional fucking hurdle to get over, because it's not intuitive. We humans, we see the world as being linear, and it isn't. Mm-hmm. This is why exponential growth in the pandemic was hard to get our heads around, because we just don't think exponentially. We can barely think geometrically, let alone exponentially.